relocating and changing the stuff in the school, in the West Bank, in Gaza. Not just should we go into Rafah, shouldn't we? What are we doing there? Should we actually change the education of what we're teaching in the mosques? Because these terror attacks are being done by individuals. So it's not like something that you can do on paper between two bodies of government.
Yeah, so the question is like, do you need to go into like the West Bank or the Gaza Strip and change the schools and everything else? So I go back and forth on this. If you ask me in 2 weeks, I might have a different opinion, but it feels like people can have an opinion, especially in this region with Israel, Palestine, with the surrounding states, where everybody has a really strong opinion and people hate certain things, but as soon as a strong leader like comes forward, you know, like a lot of people thought that peace between Egypt and Israel could never happen, and everybody's opposed to it until the deal is there. Same thing with the Oslo Accords. Until the deal is there, people are opposed to it, and then when it comes, like everybody's like, oh, okay. So I feel like you can't like de-radicalize everybody and change all the schools. It's not going to happen. There's no way that it can happen. But I feel like if there's, honestly, there needs to be a really strong Palestinian leader, I feel, that needs to come up and make like strong decisions and brave decisions. So once that agreement is in place, I feel like everything else can kind of change. But I've spoken to people that are on both sides of this that feel very differently. Ehud Omer and Yossi Beilin, these guys feel like every single micro detail needs to be worked out, and only at that point can people finally move in a direction where there's like some resolution to the conflict. People like Ben Ami, people like Kedar, obviously they're a lot different politically, but they feel like the ideas and the broad strokes need to change first, and only after that happens will the micro stuff, start to change.
Well, you just talk about Egypt. So Egypt is actually it's a catastrophe. There may be peace, like, but on the ground, what's going on there? If you talk to people, and I don't know if it's been, but it's really, really radicalized against Israel. And
it might be radicalized against Israel, but even when the Muslim Brotherhood came into power, Egypt still honored their agreement. I think that's really important. I think this is a lot. When Iran shot all those missiles, Jordan is 60, 70% Palestinians. They shot back. Saudi Arabia is another Muslim state. They shot back. So I think the agreements in writing, I think, are really important. What? I mean, everybody. It takes everybody involved. You're next. Go ahead.
It seems like this conflict is a bit in the world media landscape. It might be a bit blown out of proportions. Do you think there's a reason for that, or do you think that's true?
Is there a reason? So the question is, has the media landscape blown things out of proportion? In my opinion, I feel like it's a little bit of a repeat of in 67, Israel wins, is on top of the world, they own fucking everything, and then 73 is like the huge fucking wake-up call. I feel like for a long time it feels like in Israel, the Palestinian issue can kind of just be brushed aside. I think that like 60, 70 years ago, it was easy to look at Israel as like the victim between all the Arab states, but as time has gone on and all of those states have been removed from the conflict, it's just Israel and the Palestinians. In my opinion, it doesn't matter what you say, what you do, what the reality of the situation is. It's always going to look bad when it's Israel and Palestinians, no matter what. Even if Hamas is committing horrible atrocities on October 7th, if one soldier shoots somebody accident, like 1 million Rafah citizens were evacuated, nobody cared. But that bombing that ended up detonating to whatever factory, killing 50 people, everybody talks about that. There's just no way to get away from that, I think.
I mean, more in general, conflicts in this region seems like there's 300,000 people dead in Syria. There's things happening in the world that don't get as much coverage as like conflict in general here in Israel. I suspect there's like some geopolitical, strategical, maybe important for Israel, for other countries, that these conflicts in this region would be.
Yeah, the question is, why doesn't none of the other conflicts get as much attention? Because there's not as much to like. Like, Syria is complicated. When Syria is falling apart, there's like fucking 30 different groups fighting each other. Yemen is complicated. There's like families and tribes, and it's been, you have South Yemen, it's complicated. But for Israel-Palestine, it's, people view it, as stupid as it is, as like white Jews versus brown Arabs. They view it as colonizers versus colonized. They view it as West versus East. They view it as U.S. versus Soviet back. Like, those are the ideas, and it's much easier to pick a good guy and a bad guy there. So I think that's why so much more attention is given to Israel-Palestine.
Thank you.
Do what?
Cool.
Palestinian, yeah. So the counterpoint to that is that how does that work with Palestinians and all these other groups? Nobody knows about those groups. Nobody knows what the DFLP is or the PFLP is. What? I understand you're saying, so the counter report is that it's not about it being white-brown. I don't think it's solely about that. I just think it's a big reason why people can get in. I mean, there are other factors at play too. One is that
to do with the Jews.
I don't think so. I know that you guys like to do the anti-Semitism card for the West. Not many people in the West. It's not powered by. Sure, yeah, they might. The what was your counterpoint? Hold on. Another factor that plays into it is, for some reason, despite the fact that Israel is like a Western-style democracy that came from the West, they don't know how to talk to the West. Hamas knows how to talk to the West. You guys had October 7th happen. I'm not shitting on your customs or your traditions, but your intuition is to bury the bodies immediately. In Palestine, when somebody's killed, they shake the baby in front of the camera. These are like very, very different approaches to how you market the conflict, you know? In Israel, like honestly, I've said this before, well, I don't think I've done this on stream yet, but like the best piece of propaganda that was made for Israel, the best Hasbara, came from Hamas doing the videotapes of the girl in the back of the Jeep. That was a Hamas video, and I think that was probably what stirred up, you know, pro-Israel sentiment more than anything else. And I think Israel has to, I don't know how, but the Hasbara meme is a total fucking joke. There is no Hasbara. Like, it's horrible, yeah. So, but I keep in mind, it's easy for me to criticize because I can just sit here and needlessly nitpick. I understand that it's hard. I'm not envious of Netanyahu or anybody else in the position. It's a difficult job, but these are the problems that I see, I guess. Question.
Don't you think, you said that the Israeli conflict with the Palestinians is so-called simple, or it could be seen as simple?
Hold on, can you speak up a little?
Yeah, you said that the Israeli-Palestinian conflict could be seen as simple. But I think that like a weird Western view of the conflict, because don't you say that the reason that Jews came back here in the first place is because of the systematic murder of Jews in the Shoah?
So I think the question is that like even though the conflict is seen as simple, it's not really simple.
It's
That's
not
the Western.
simple at all.
I feel like I actually kind of disagree. I think it is kind of simple. I think the issue is that both sides just want things that the other side isn't willing to give. I feel like that's like in a broad stroke, that is it. I do agree that there is a simplification that happens on the West, but I think you have to understand that from a Western perspective, it doesn't matter what you say. In this last war, there's going to be, I don't know, 20, 30, 40,000 once all the bodies are counted, Palestinians dead, and there's going to be, even including October 7th, maybe 2,000, 3,000, maybe Israelis dead. No matter what the explanation is, nobody in the West, no kid on a college campus is going to look at those numbers and think, oh, okay, there's just no way, it can't happen.
I think that the difference between what the West sees as Israel and what Israelis see is that Israelis just want to live. We just want to live, and we don't have anywhere else to live and govern ourselves as Jews. That's why we are all Zionists.
I understand that. So the counter retort was that Jews just want like a place to live. I understand what you're saying, and I'm sympathetic with that point. But in the West, the impression is that every single Jew you talk to is a fucking millionaire banker who can go and live anywhere in the world, you know, on fucking Epstein Island or whatever. Like that's, I know it's not true. I'm just saying that's the perception of the West. So fighting that is so hard. And then somehow there's like this Western perception that Jews run like all the fucking media and everything, when Russia and Qatar and Iran are doing more for the media than you guys are.
Jews are 0.1% of the
What?
0.1%.
Yeah, no, I understand. I understand your point, but that, I'm just speaking to what the Western perception is, which is it has to be fought against somehow. Yeah.
Yes, for sure. I was meaning to ask you earlier. So you've been here in Israel so far a few days, and I know this Israel is like there's two Israels: the one that they talk about online, and the actual people in society. So based on all the perception you had online so far, what's your impression and biggest surprise about like Israeli people, Israeli culture? Anything new that you learned?
Yeah, I'm getting asked questions about a lot about like my time in Israel. Honest to God, fuck, where's my security guy? Like every day it's been like interview. Like we haven't done anything. This is like the first time I've even been to the beach, so I haven't like done like any culture at all. Like we've gone to a few restaurants, but it's been like 8 a.m. to like 12 is like an interview, and then from like 1 to 4 is an interview, and then like we and Shel Pfeffer is like a British journalist guy. I don't know if anybody's heard of him. We talked to that guy. I think last night. I think we left his place at like midnight from Jerusalem, and then came back to Tel Aviv, and then this morning we were at Shlomo Ben Ami's house at like 9:30 a.m. and then we talked to him, and then I talked to Yosef Haddad, whatever. Yeah, it's just like everything. Yeah, so I have no experience with the culture or anything yet. I'm just like driving around and.
You should go party more. Go to
yeah, I'll think about it. you up there. Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead. What happened? 9/11? We got terror attacks. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No way.
The building was in Afghanistan by the terror. What happened to us happened to you. And you like, people like go free Palestine. The same group protected us. They're like, and you have like this message, people died, you know? And you're like, yeah, let's go like have like people killing us. Let's kill other people like me. Bro, like you don't understand that the people who did 9/11 is the same state of mind, same of like belief, what it did to us. The same thing.
I understand what you're saying. So you're saying that, like, in the West, Americans need to understand that 9/11 and terrorist attacks and people with this type of ideology do the same thing on a cover of you guys. I understand this. This is what I would tell you to. I would encourage you to understand this. Non-state actors, people that aren't part of countries, people that don't have standing armies. And right now, the battlefield internationally, on a political level, is primed for them. So you can look at, well, America, you know, we got 9/11 and then we went to the Middle East, we did all this stuff. That was a traumatizing event for the United States. Not 9/11, but Iraq. Like, we can't do anything in the Middle East now without people going, that's going to be like Iraq. It's like our new Vietnam. Like, we can barely help, Ukraine because that's going to be Iraq, and we can't do anything in Israel because we're mind-fucked from the Middle East. So even though the United States felt like they wanted to do stuff afterwards, all the negative attention that you guys got, we basically feel like we got that after 20 years of the adventures in Iraq and Afghanistan. I'm not trying to say anything is right or wrong, but I'm just saying, like, even our response there that we did ended up making domestically any foreign policy choice by the United States incredibly difficult, and it ended up making internationally the view of the United States and our authority to operate in any theater, especially the Middle East, severely hampered, in my opinion. So just things to keep in mind, I guess, yeah. But I understand, yeah, it's fighting these kinds of people, it's incredibly challenging because, like, the war in Iraq, I don't think anybody really felt that bad because it was Saddam Hussein and the army of Iraq. I think they had one of the largest tank forces in the world. It's a real standing army. But as soon as you're fighting against guerrilla warriors, you're fucked. Everybody looks at you like you're horrible and crazy. And I mean, you guys experienced that in 2006. You thought maybe the Lebanese people would like you. They don't. You thought that, maybe, if you bomb, whatever, 2008, 2014, whatever in the Gaza Strip, maybe, the Gazans will like you and not Hamas. They don't. So yeah, it's hard. It's very, very, very challenging. I'm sympathetic towards it. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, me?
Yeah.
Okay. I have a story for I'm thinking about one of them. The point is, there's this, in Israel we have like a mandatory military service.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if we don't, we have the option to do like national services and like volunteering and stuff like that. How were we saying this like in 2019 or so? Talking about Buttigieg or something? Talking about like some form of mandatory volunteering. What are your opinions on like some form of mandatory volunteering?
On mandatory like military service?
No, not necessarily military. Let's say you have an option.
Or any, I mean, I think mandatory some type. The question is basically how do I feel about like mandatory some type of like government-run stuff.
Volunteering.
Yeah, I think it's fine. I think it's fine. I think it's okay.
I think it's genuinely a great idea.
Yeah, I don't think it's anything bad. Yeah.
Oh, and what are your thoughts on like the peace plan?
Thoughts on the peace plan by Biden? Is there a peace plan?
It's a ceasefire plan. Ceasefire.
Oh, okay. Peace plan and ceasefire. Peace and ceasefire are two totally different things. So, I haven't even looked
I think
at
it
the
was just
details of it yet.
rejected.
So, but I think I just heard that. The last
I heard,
yeah. So.
Or by Hamas.
Yeah.
Yeah, the question is, what do you do after the war? Okay, so the question is, how do you advance any peace plan without making it seem like a reward for October 7th? Yeah, the harsh reality is that I think, as sad as it is, I think that probably is the case. That Israel felt like they could kick the can down the road, and then, I mean, Hamas has a political victory showing, no, you cannot ignore this conflict, which is tragic. But I mean, it really echoes the Yom Kippur War, right? Where it was like, oh, like, we can just kind of win and take all these territories and nobody cares, and that wasn't the case. So, I mean, if something comes after this, the thought can't be like, well, we can't do peace because they'll think it was because of this particular thing, and we just like keep going. I mean, Oslo came after the first Intifada. I don't think that should be part of the thought process. But Yeah, I don't even know what a peace plan looks like. Cause, yeah, that's basically what I'm here to talk to people about. I haven't got like the strong Palestinian side of things yet. That comes at the end of my trip, so I guess I'll keep it.
That came to the Israeli parliament to declare no more war and no more bloodshed.
And who?
Sadat.
The Egyptian leader.
Parliament. It stood in Jerusalem inside the Israeli parliament and said no more war and no more bloodshed.
Yeah?
Yeah. If Abu Mazen would have come to the Israeli parliament, there will be peace tomorrow.
I think there needs to be that figure in the Palestinian world. I hope that Abbas can be it,
It won't happen. It won't happen this way.
I understand what you're saying, but this is like the only thing that I'll say is that it doesn't matter what the excuse is, but like your country will be destroyed if the status quo maintains. And it could be that like all of you are being nuked by Iran, and you're saying, well, the Palestinians have no strong leaders as you're destroyed. That was part of Sharon's idea when he disengaged in 2005. He also wanted to pull in the West Bank because I think Sharon had that idea. I talked to Ben-Ami today, and it was interesting. He said that one of the most tragic deaths historically, it wasn't Rabin. He thought that if Rabin would have carried on with his plan, he would have ended up in the exact same place. He said that he thought the tragic death was Sharon dying of a stroke, and that the unilateral disengagement from the West Bank, because Sharon thought that there was no peace to be had, but at least if Israel pulls out, then fuck it, then whatever happens, happens, and they can make the arguments for defense and security.
What if you won't though?
But if what?
What if you won't? You know?
Well, if you want, I'm just saying, like, if you want, like, you can, there's, heaven is or do you have heaven? I don't know. There's a lot of people in the afterlife, you know, who are arguing with the guy at the gates on the bike saying, I had the right of way.
He's winning,
and
too.
they might
Very
have, but I
impressive.
mean, like, at the end of the day, if you get destroyed and it's like, well, fuck, the Palestinian leader, it's the onus, you have to do something, right? Israel's figured out in the past, like, hopefully they can figure it out in the future, but, or if they don't, hopefully I'm not here when it happens. Go ahead.
Yeah. Yeah. In Israel, we talk a lot about the day after. I guess it's like a continuation of the question that was asked earlier.
Yeah.
I know that you don't have like a specific answer to this, and no one actually has an answer to this, but considering the day after that we neutralize Hamas's military powers and we get the hostages home, what should Israel do in the short term? Like, what should the first thing that Israel should do? Policy-wise, or
yeah, so the question is, what does Israel do after the war? I truly don't know the answer to that. I talked to Yair Golan, and his idea is that the PA has to be strengthened.
Yeah.
That like Abbas needs to be able to walk into the Gaza Strip with all the money that Israel is helping the PA raise behind them to construct things to win approval for the Palestinian people.
Amen, amen.
But then, wait, what did he say?
He said that you're
I've heard other people say the PA is a failed entity. I've heard Arabs say back and forth. I don't know. I don't know what the answer is. Yeah. You. So the question was about like de-radicalization of like the Hitler Youth. What? Yeah, the question is basically like, well, I said earlier that you can't de-radicalize everybody, and then the counter retort is, well, America de-radicalized the Nazis and everything. So it seems like that can happen. I think that the far-right Israeli response is America was able to de-radicalize after World War II because they dominated those countries. Japan was completely obliterated. Germany was completely obliterated. The Marshall Plan.
It's a missile.
צבע אדום.
צבע אדום.
But yeah, I mean, after World War II was unique because there was like a total domination of those countries.
Bathing without lifeguard supervision is dangerous and prohibited. Please exit the water.
There's the added challenge as well because then the counter retort is like, well, we completely destroyed Gaza. The counter retort though, or another dimension to this conflict is Japan and Germany and that faction didn't have the entire world cheering them on like the Palestinians do. So that's a tougher thing as well. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, the eyebrows. No, he gave me eyebrows. God, what do you got?
Who's your favorite Israeli prime minister and why?
My favorite Israeli prime minister?
Rabin.
Menachem Begin has a funny story. What? Oh, okay. That dude seemed like he was literally attacked by, tried to be killed by every fucking person. The Nazis, fucking the Jews when he came over, fucking Palestinians, like.
It was right over here. Right here. Altalena.
Wait, who's he
I know that
talking
he
about?
wasn't a prime minister, but
who's he
Moshe
talking about?
Dayan
Oh,
is
yeah.
also very interesting. Those two guys, I think, are the most like interesting in your history. Yeah, go you with the hat. Right here, you can speak. I just come closer. The policy of the U.S. Yeah, I think that's a huge issue that everything in the U.S. is being so politicized and everything has to be part of some fucking joint deal and that like people don't even want to solve issues so they keep it up to the election. Yeah, I think it's incredibly fucking different. And it's more sad that like people are sitting in fucking ditches in Ukraine like waiting for artillery in the U.S. and it's like tied to like our immigration bills and shit is fucking horrible. Yeah.
What's the time?
It's not good. It's
8:05.
Oh.
Yeah, for sure.
Right now in a war, what this is very good for us. I think a lot of us here post that.
So the question is like, how do you combat misinformation when you're posting stuff online? I mean, there are so many different things that Israel has to fight against in terms of like their view in the world. I mean, what you can do starts at home. The first thing you should do is make sure that fucking Ben-Giver and Smoke are never speaking publicly to anybody ever, or anything ever. I feel like anything they say is going to end up in a fucking ICJ indictment somewhere. Or fucking, yeah. I mean, like, what? Yeah. I feel like this is something that is so stupid. I deal with this a lot as like an online guy that like people say misinformation about, you have to combat it. When you're combating misinformation, you always see people that will never listen to a fucking thing that you say. But there are two important groups that you should keep in mind when you're speaking in defense of yourself. One is there are people that are listening that just don't really speak or say much, but they do hear things, but they're really hard to see. That's one. And number two is for the people that do defend you, if you stop defending yourself, you give them any ammunition to defend you with, which I think is the most annoying or irritating thing. Yeah, so I mean, like, be truthful, you know, say what you can, and hopefully, you know, Hassan gets banned on Twitch, and propaganda war isn't lost or whatever. But it's hard. There's like 35 different recommendations that I could make, and at the end of the day, I don't even know if they would help. So you've got like a lot of Qatari money, you've got a lot of Iranian and Russian robot influence, you've got fucking nerds at the fucking Kremlin that are typing up the stupidest fucking shit all the time. It's hard. You go ahead.
Is this live streamed?
I have no idea.
Dog?
He's a cute dog too.
That's a good boy. People are just like joining in.
Yeah, it's very cool.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
You're like an old guy there who probably never heard of him before. Doesn't even know what the internet is.
Wow, that's a very long question.
Yeah. So essentially, after a lot of glazing, I was kidding. The question was, what's like the strongest pro-Palestinian argument? I'm uncomfortable answering that right now. The end of my trip is where I'm going to try to talk to a couple guys in the PA. I'm going to try to talk to Palestinians and get those arguments. I really don't know any right now. They're very, very rough.
How scared are you?
Yeah, right. If you could, I would absolutely do that. Yeah, I don't know. It's hard. Yeah, it's hard. I don't know what the good pro-Palestinian arguments are. I try to find them. I'm searching hard. So yeah, I mean the best one is that your guys is like the little party that are part of your coalition. The right wingers are possibly insane. Also, I think like the settlements are problematic. And all the, especially the ones like the way out there, like your Ariel and whatever the fuck ones. Like
dangerous to say here.
Who? Ariel?
No, saying the settlements are problematic.
Oh.
It's dangerous to say here. Probably not.
I feel like a lot of people here are not very.
You would be surprised.
You think so?
Yeah.
Everyone was cheering against Smotrich and Ben-Gvir, no?
The pre-1920, the pre-1917 arguments don't, I think they're really big. If somebody wants to dive into history, we can, but I mean, like for a large period of the Ottoman Empire history, like Jews waiting for London to immigrate, like is that going to be the basis on which you build your argument that they should? Yeah, so if somebody really wants to like get into the like historical, but usually what happens when people start bringing up stuff like that, even Wayne Rabbani, and I think kind of Finkelstein did this, is whenever you start to question them on any specifics there, all they have are talking points. And they'll say like, I don't want to get in the weeds, or I don't want to get lost in the details. And it's like, okay, well, fuck you. Like, I think those are just talking points. You go ahead. No. I am not. I have very little to no sympathy for the religious parts on either side. The crazy Islamic shit, I think it is mirrored by the crazy. It's not Orthodox. What are the names of your crazy settler?
No.
I don't know. Whatever that.
Religious Zionism.
I think the religious Zionism. That's it. I think that there are strong arguments that can be made relating to settlements along the Green Line. I think there are security arguments that can be made there, but I think that they're tainted by the messianic hallucinations of the religious Zionists that want to, reoccupy the ancient lands of Judea and Samaria and welcome their fellow Jews. I think that shit poisons a lot of it. But also, at the end of the day, like it's not like well, I mean, I'm an atheist, so I think it's all hallucination. So, but I understand what you're saying. I just think yeah, true. Yeah.
Two questions.
Yeah.
If we are downhill, you bet on Israel to come around? Question number one.
Would I bet on Israel to come around?
Like, because we are downhill from October 7th and everything is like...
Oh, okay.
Would you bet on Israel to come around? Second question, do you think data changes?
Okay, so the first question is Israel going to recover from October 7th? You mean like in the world's eyes? Like
we have like 7 fronts of military, our economic is downhill, everything is downhill in Israel.
Okay. Is the 7 fronts, is that an Ilan talking point, or does everybody say that? The 7 fronts, I heard Ilan Levy, he says that a lot. Is that from him, or?
No, that's all I want to do.
That's, okay. The 7 fronts, here's the thing. For Israel, like, the battlefield has changed, like, and that has to be recognized because, like, the unified front of Egypt, of Jordan, of Syria, to everybody else in the world, that looks more scary than Hezbollah, than the Houthis, than Hamas. Like, it just doesn't have the same feeling. Non-state actors have that international advantage. So the question is really, can Israel, like, survive and navigate in the world where it just can't be a kinetic response. No amount of bombs or missiles are going to win these military conflicts. It has to be painful diplomacy. And when I say diplomacy, I don't just mean peace deals. I mean relationships with other countries. I mean working to starve out, whenever Iran or Hamas or however that looks, but it has to be that type of response. It's not going to be solved militarily. And then the second question: do
you think data?
Yeah, does data change people's minds? No, data is like it's a part of what changes people's minds, but somebody's going to listen to a friendly figure more than they will to a data scientist. A lot of people don't even like fucking educated scientific people. They look at them and they say, fuck this guy. But it is depressing, but unfortunately that's the way of the world. Yeah.
Thank you.
Right now. Yeah, thank you. You, go ahead.
So, I'm here with the eyebrows guy.
Okay.
So, we're 18 years old.
Okay.
And we're going to be enlisting in the Army in a couple of years. And I don't know if this worries all my friends or all my peers, but for me, I've thought about it, and even though I really want to enlist to serve my country and protect my family, I do have this little worry that in the media and in the global, opinion, it's not such a good thing to be an IDF soldier.
It's not. It's absolutely
not.
yeah, the opinion is really bad. Yeah.
So just my question for you is, what do you think about the teens in Israel? They want to protect, but it does affect us. This public opinion. What's your opinion about teens enlisting? Arguments in the world.
In terms of enlisting, if you're a Jew, this is your country, and it's only surviving on the backs of how many people are willing to join the military, like how much of your population, in the 40th war, what was it, 17% of the whole fucking population was mobilized to fight, and the Arab states had fucking 10x, 20x the population, and they couldn't muster the same army. So, participating in your country in military service is probably a proud tradition. It's probably important for the defense of your country, for your people, whatever. So, I think that's probably an important thing to keep in mind. In terms of world opinion, I guess that's your. Am I allowed to say that's your cross to bear? I don't know if it's a Christian. But,
he was a Jew. It's okay.
Yeah, Christ is king. What? I think Israel has unique issues. Here's the one piece of advice I'll give you, okay? If you're joining the IDF, okay? Leave your fucking cell phone at home and stop taking stupid fucking videos, okay?
True.
Okay? Go to a fucking drawer. If you want to fucking wear a dress and you think it's funny, just don't fucking take a fucking video picture. Okay, yeah.
Me?
Yeah.
Okay, so a lot of people in Israel think that whatever they do, they get criticized. Whatever they do. So it's kind of very hard to convince them that maybe we should listen to some of the criticism.
Hold on, wait, I'm sorry. In Israel, it's hard to convince people.
That maybe we should listen to some of the criticism that people give us. How do I do this? Or even if it's a good idea, maybe we shouldn't listen to them. Maybe we should just do whatever we want.
Yeah, so the question is, if you're Israeli, and I'm sure at some point there's a mindfuck moment where you have to wonder, okay, well, hold on, have I been lied to about everything? And were we actually just completely fucking wrong? This is something that I've dealt with a lot. When a lot of people are saying the same thing, there is a corresponding true fact of the matter relating to this thing. It might not have anything to do with what they're talking about, but it's good to understand why they believe it. So if I have a debate with Finkelstein and I've got a bunch of people saying oh, he destroyed you, he annihilated you, he was so much smarter, you're wrong and everything, even if I know that the sentiments aren't factually correct, they're expressing something. And it's good to understand where that something comes from. Does that make sense?
Not really.
I'll do it simple. If you're a black guy and you're going to speak to a white audience and everybody says, oh, he was such a fucking asshole, but you were the nicest guy on stage as a black person, then maybe it's going to say, okay, well, maybe these people have some racial attitudes against black people. So there's an underlying truth, there's a fact of the matter for why they're saying the thing. It might not be what they're expressing. It rarely is.
Yeah.
But it's just good to understand what they're expressing. And then once you understand that thing, then you can decide, okay, well, is it a thing that I need to worry about, or do I want to change that perception, or can I change that perception? That's the next step. What I just described there is an incredibly difficult process. Most content creators can't do it. I don't know if a country can do it. It's really hard. Hi. Last question? Yeah. Okay, I'll do 3. Okay, 3 more. Okay, I'll do 3 more questions, okay? 3 more. You've got one, go ahead. You've got one, go ahead. Jesus Christ. Okay, yeah, you're fine.
Yeah, there's a bike
okay,
shop, right? I don't think about that. The soldiers with guns. M16.
Oh, yeah, fuck. Okay, yes. Yeah. Need it, right? Fuck, whatever. Yeah. Okay, yeah. Okay, whatever, go ahead.
Yeah, what I want to American colleges and say, oh, it's like a throwback against the
California. Oh shit, that's true actually. There might be a lot of young people who don't even remember.
Yeah. So if we say October 7th like on 9/11, maybe the British American will understand what we mean, like in a positive way, but
I think here's
Can you repeat the question?
when it comes to
Can you repeat the question?
October 7th to 9/11.
I mean, my point is like the only way to change the
Personal conversation.
it's only if we change the perspective of America.
Like what America's perspective of
Of itself.
Because we see
Because they think Americans
But the
look
problem-
at themselves as white colonizers and they don't see that they have the rights of the Americans and they're not part of their own private system.
Yeah, so
then how can we, as Israelis, have a similar value system if it's not good for these kind of people?
it's I don't know, fuck, it's tough. Here's one cautionary tale I would say against the 9/11 comparison though, is that to get to the blowback argument, you have to do reading and you've got to do like what does it mean when they say blowback. For a lot of Americans, we saw on TV fucking planes. Yeah, but that's like how. But it's different, right? Like, and I'm not saying that I agree with this, but the narrative is planes were flown by terrorists into U.S. buildings and civilians were killed. In Gaza, it was brave people breaking out of their prison to go and fight against their oppressors, right? Now, regardless of whether that's true or not, which obviously I don't think it's true, but it's yeah. But the moreover, you're saying that like if there's a lot of self-hating Americans or people that are like the only way to yeah. That's a really hard thing to do. There's when I'm arguing with people, there are times when I'm on the defensive and there are times when I'm on the offensive. I can't speak to the totality of your foreign communications, but I do think that there are times where I feel like the Israeli response to things should be way more aggressive rather than playing defense all the time. Like the questions should have been. I don't know how to do fucking media. I can say a thing, but like when people were asking questions about the hashtag eyes on Rafa, right? Like before any question, before any excuse, before any reason why, the question should be, why the fuck are rockets coming out of an area that's like 5 meters from the tents? That, like anybody that asks you a question should have to answer that first. That should be number one. Why? Because every single thing that Hamas does when they fight is aimed towards inducing the maximum amount of civilian casualties. And that most people don't understand or think that, right?
What's the value consensus that you feel people agree on that is not relative to who is doing what? Nothing? Everything is relative?
I think so. People will say that it's not, but I mean, I learned this really well when I fought with lefties. I think people genuinely believe there are no bad tactics, only bad targets. You've got people that are masked. Do you know, I don't know in American politics, do you know who Tara Reid is? Tara Reid was somebody that made a really wild rape accusation against Biden, and it was wild for. She was like, it was a wild accusation. There were so many American skeptics that believed every single word that she said. You know, she's a woman, she's given this blah 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 blah, and these are the same people that are writing stories saying that like rapes on October 7th haven't happened. Show me all the victims that are all saying that they were raped. It's not possible, right? So like in this sense, like the skepticism and the way that it's applied, clearly there's a disconnect. If there's truly a principled stance, it can't be explained. I think a lot of it is relative. Yeah.
Okay, last question afterwards, okay? Make it good.
Do what?
Make it really good now.
He's whispering now.
Yeah.
They're going on a date after this.
Yeah.
יפה. תן לכם לדבר.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks a lot. I got one more question. Soldier in the top. Where? Where? Stand up. Yeah, you got it. Okay, go ahead.
He can't show his face.
What?
I'm sorry for the inconvenience, and the dude can't show his face.
Oh.
It's
Yeah,
fine.
you're fine.
No,
Okay, yeah, quick
no,
camera.
I'm
Okay,
helping
fine.
you. It's okay. So, the majority of the discourse around the Israel-Palestine issue is centered around the history and the legitimacy of the country and state of Israel. And I think, from my perspective, there's an issue of of perspective on this problem. I was born and I've been living in Ashkelon for 25 years. If you know Ashkelon, it's a city that is most targeted by missiles that are higher tier than mortars. Ever since, basically. And I grew up into this. I've been living this ever since childhood, and I think it's ridiculous to even bring up the idea that because of what happened, let's say Israel is not legitimate. It doesn't matter for me as a person that did nothing to aid in this illegitimacy, to be targeted, and for my family to be targeted for all this time, for doing nothing really, and for people to claim that I have no right of being here, of living here, and I also think it's ridiculous to even entertain this idea because it's nonsensical.
I understand. I don't think anybody believes the history arguments. It's just a talking point. If you show half of American students that are protesting a map of the West Bank and the Gaza Strip, they're going to think that the West Bank is the one in the West. Like they'll make historical arguments, but you know, if you talk about like the occupation of the Gaza Strip and the West Bank, and you ask them, well, you know, how long have they been occupied? And they say, you know, well, since, yeah, they'll say since like 67 or something. Well, who occupied them from 48 to 67? They don't really think about that. Or when they talk about who settlers are, who the occupation is, you know, people will say like settlers and occupation, and people don't realize this. When some people say that, when it's said over here, for instance, all of Israel is settlers, and all of it is an occupation, the whole country. So people bring up historical arguments, but like the question earlier before about like principles versus non-principles, they're bullshit. Like people will say shit like, you know, learn the history. They don't have any fucking idea what they're talking about. They don't know any of the history. So you can make historical arguments, but you'll find very quickly, and I'm sure some of you have probably fucking done this, that when you start asking people who have strong feelings about the history, they'll very quickly not engage anymore because they have no fucking idea what they're talking about. So
most of us have not lived through all of these things anyway. We haven't taken part of it. But yet you are suffering.
Yeah, so it sucks because on the Palestinian side, every single time they do something, you're asked to show empathy for why they think the things they do. But like people will say over and over again, you need to empathize with what they experience. But like none of these, I would say maybe 20% of American students like know what the Second Intifada is. They have no fucking idea. Like, you know, I've asked people in interviews, but like, why do you think? I go to a college campus and interview people. Why do you think Israel started to go so hard right? No fucking idea. It was just like randomly the evil Jews just started voting for Netanyahu or Sharon, I guess, for no reason. People have no concept, no idea. So yeah.
I think it's fair to say that on the Palestinian side, people my age can think the same things, and I think it's fair. But at the same time, the issue of dealing with the terrorist group is that when they are aiming missiles at me, while I'm suffering, I'm not gonna adjust the neighborhood dome and target it in Gaza. Right? I'm not gonna do the same thing, and I'm left here to apologize, to feel bad about just living there and being born here, stuff that is out of my control, and I love this country, and I love my heritage, and it's not like I'm dismissing it, but at the same time, my personal life, my individual life, is all I can base my opinions on, and that's how I live my life, and yeah.
Okay, well. Listen, I love you guys.